Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer, and I'm podcasting from Ma'ale Adumim in Israel. There are few matters in life more important than that of free will. In fact, there are no matters in life more important than free will. Upon this inexplicable power, everything that is human about human beings rides. Without it, we really aren't human beings at all. We are glorified animals, which is another way of saying glorified rocks. We would simply do the things we do, think the thoughts we think, feel the feelings we feel, without any more volition than a rock rolling down a hill. With it, we are a step beneath God, creators of our own destiny and at least partially responsible for its twists and turns. We need to define things a little here in order to hone in on what exactly free will is and what it isn't. Free will is the power to choose something that hasn't been decided. It means that in no way, by either natural forces or the mysterious power called fate, was that choice destined to be made. It cannot even be under the sway of God, for if it was, it really wouldn't be free at all. There is no known physical power that can be the source of free will. It cannot be lodged in the physical brain, though the brain probably plays some role in its awareness of the possibilities and its ability to carry things out to fruition. This takes it out of the realm of science, at least as far as science is understood today. This is the reason most scientists and modern philosophers don't really believe that it exists. It goes against their core belief in the ultimate physicality of everything. This means that free will requires a spiritual power in order to exist. Whether this spiritual power is found in what we call the mind, or whether it is in some way external to the mind, is a matter of speculation. The important thing is that only a spiritual power can account for free will. This is beyond the pale for the world of science, and it is absolutely required for the world of religion. This is why religious people in general tend to be the ones who wholeheartedly believe in this human power, and atheists in general who tend to disparage it. Honing in a little deeper, it should be clarified that the overwhelming majority of what we believe to be choices do not involve free will at all. In fact, the atheists are correct when the matter is restricted to these choices. They are made by some chemical or electrical forces in the brain. We may think that we are initiating a choice, but in reality, we are doing nothing of the sort. These are what could be called Coke Sprite choices. They involve selecting one thing or one course of action instead of another, but the choice is made by some physical process in the brain, which is really letting nature decide things. These are the automatic choices we seem to make all the time when our minds or whatever spiritual power we may possess has no involvement. We do this all the time, and we can even detect when we do it. These mindless choices fill our days and create the illusion that we are doing something more than running on a mental version of cruise control. But there are moments in life, which may be quite frequent or may not be, in which we somehow have taken control of the wheel and assumed the power to make that choice. It is a very subtle difference between these two scenarios, with the assumption of control being nothing more than a flick of the mind. But that little flick is everything. It is the difference between human and rote. It is noticeable if we choose to become aware of it. This week's Parsha is called Nitzavim. It is a very short Parsha, the third shortest in the Torah. It happens that the shortest is next week's Parsha, the fourth shortest is the week after that, and the second shortest the week after that. It isn't clear why the Parshas at the end of Deuteronomy were divided up into such short segments. Perhaps it is because these Parshas always fall around the time of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. There would be so much going on around this time that maybe it was best to keep the Parshas short. But there is another more likely reason. It was no accident that these Parshas are read around this time. This is the traditional season of both spiritual reflection, fear of one's fate, and a time to celebrate the joy of life. Rosh Hashanah is known as the Day of Judgment. It is traditionally assumed to be the day in which everyone's fate is sealed to some degree or another. Yom Kippur is the day to reflect on things and perhaps make some sort of change in one's destiny. Sukkot is the time to celebrate whatever blessings one has in life and to hope for the future. These three Parshas are filled with elements of destiny. All four of them contain prophetic statements about the fate of the Israelites, both as a nation, as tribal groups, and as individuals. Most of these prophetic statements are quite dramatic and even dreadful. This fits with the tenor of last week's Parsha, which contained a long list of curses that would befall the Israelites if they didn't follow the Torah. There is more of that in this week's Parsha, even more in next week's, and still plenty to go around in the week after that. It is only in the final Parsha of the Torah that things reverse a bit, and the focus is on what is rather than what will be. The word Nitzavim is usually translated standing, but it is probably more accurately rendered situated or present. It introduces a somewhat lengthy section which comprises more than half of the Parsha, which deals once again with the fate of the Israelites if they don't follow the guidelines of the Torah. The important nuance that is added in this chapter is that it is explicitly stated that this message is not only directed to those who are present listening to the speech, but also to those who will only be a part of the Israelite nation in the future. Their fate is also entrenched with that of those who were present to hear all of this. In addition, there is a reminder that veering from the Torah does not necessarily mean some blatant violation of the rules, but could begin with the barest smidgen of a hint of heading in that direction. Following this section, the rest of the Parsha reads like a brief summary of the goals of the Torah. It begins with a reassuring prediction that the Israelites, no matter where they have gone, will always be able to find their way back to Hashem and to the Torah. This is followed by a dramatic declaration of how difficult the task that has been placed before the Israelites might seem. It may seem that only angels are capable of accomplishing what is demanded of them, or that it is simply out of their reach for one reason or another. But the fact is, the Torah states that it will always be right there, with the only requirement to fulfill it being a simple choice. This leads into the final section of the Parsha, which is only a few verses long. This section is not only unique for the Torah, and not only unique for the entire Bible, but it may be unique in all of human literature. It is worth quoting this section in its entirety to present the full impact of what is being said. Quote, "Observe, I have placed before you today life and good and death and evil, which I am commanding you today to love Hashem your God, to follow in his ways, and to keep his commandments and his rituals and his laws. Then you will have lived and increased, and Hashem your God will have blessed you in the land which you are coming there to possess. I have called to testify concerning you today the heavens and the earth. And if your heart will turn and you will not listen, and you will have been driven off and bowed to other deities and worshiped them, I have told you today that you will be destroyed. You shall not last long on the ground to which you are crossing the Jordan to come there to possess. Life and death I have placed before you, blessing and curse, and you will have chosen life in order that you live, you and your descendants." Much of this sounds like statements that have been said all through the book of Deuteronomy. The idea that Hashem will bless you if you follow in Hashem's ways and destroy you if you do not is one of the main themes of this book. But there is something very new here, something that is stated as dramatically and as simply as possible. That new factor is the way this choice is presented. It is not the typical follow in Hashem's ways or not, but it is life and death or good and evil. That is really what this choice is all about. It is the ultimate choice of good and evil, which is really a choice of life and death. If this description wasn't stated forcefully enough at the beginning, it is repeated at the end. Quote, "Life and death I have placed before you, blessing and curse." Then comes the punchline, possibly the most dramatic statement of the Bible. "And you will have chosen life." What does that statement mean? It sounds like it could be a prediction. You will choose life. But that defeats the whole purpose of presenting these two options before you, good and evil, life and death, blessing and curse. If the outcome of the choice was predetermined, there really was no choice. So how else could it be read? Jewish tradition reads this statement as a suggestion. You should choose life. Well, this makes sense. It does make one wonder why this needed to be stated. It would seem like this was obvious by this point in the Torah. Is there an alternative? It turns out that there is. Owing to a nuance in Hebrew grammar, this verse could be read, quote, "You will have to have chosen life." But what does that mean? Does it result in the same problem of either eliminating the choice or only presenting a suggestion? The answer to this is no. This statement is saying that there is only one real choice, that of life. The other option, evil and death, is available, but it is not really a choice. It is a non-choice. It is letting things play out as nature or fate would take them. The only way out of that fatalistic outcome is to make the only true choice available. Only good and blessing and life can be chosen. The alternatives are simply allowing the cards to fall where they will. This is a very important message before Rosh Hashanah. When we sense that our lives are not really in our hands, and that we are driven to do the things we do by forces beyond our control, or that we have no real freedom of choice to begin with, we have to hear this. We do have a choice. It is the choice to choose or not to choose. And the Torah is absolutely clear on this point. Choose life. Shabbat Shalom and Shana Tova.